Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, today is our last webinar series for this year, and we are honored to have Ms. Patis Tesoro, our textile revivalist and fiber textile revivalist, and also a fashion icon in the Philippines. So I would like to introduce Ma'am Patis Tesoro. She's the daughter of Ramon Pamintuan Esperanza or Nena Poblador Fabela. She's married to attorney Jose Claro Tesoro, and architect Augusto F. Villalion is the first cousin. As both designer and environmentalist, Tesoro gained media recognition as the Grand Dame of Philippine fashion, despite having no formal education in clothing design. Her first exposure to clothing and fashion came from her mother, who ran a dress shop from home. Tesoro then learned to sew in grade school as part of the home education curriculum at Assumption in Iloilo. After attending Maryknoll, now Miran College, from 1959 to 1968, she began studying art education at Mary Grove College in Detroit, Michigan. She returned to the Philippines after only a year upon her mother's death in 1969. She returned to Maryknoll to continue her studies. As her husband's family owned Tesoros, then the largest chain of stores specializing in Philippine handicrafts, she first ventured into clothing business in 1972, initially with a line of embroidered blouses. By 1982, she launched her own label, Patis, followed by her first fashion show in 1984. Tesoros' first couture line came with the founding of the Patrones de Casa Manila, a group dedicated to preserving artifacts and creative expression relevant to Philippine history and culture. One of her advocacies with the Patrones was the establishment of a sustainable industry for the production and distribution of piña or pineapple fabric. Handwoven and handspun from dried pineapple leaves, piña is traditionally associated with formal and elite Filipino clothing, specifically the barong or the traditional Filipino clothing for males, and the terno or the traditional Filipino dress for females. As it is notoriously difficult to produce and to weave, to revive piña cloth production, Tesoro lobbied with the Visayan local officials to set up courses that would train the next generation of piña weavers. She succeeded in doing this in 1985. She also pioneered the development of piña seda, a blend of synthetic fiber, silk, and piña fiber. In 1992, Tesoro became the organizer of the Katutubong Filipino Foundation, or KFF, which was devoted to providing tribal and rural-based Filipinos with livelihood opportunities while preserving their traditional arts and crafts. Under the supervision of Tesoro and then First Lady Amelita Ramos, the KFF participated in the Philippine Festival of Arts and Culture held in France in 1984 and the Bonjour Manila exhibit in Printep's department store in Paris. Through such ventures, she showcased her talents all over the world, from New York to Beijing to Toronto. In 2000, together with San Juan civic leader Gia Gomez, she introduced the Ninay doll, a collector's item dressed in Philippine-made fabric and which was meant to depict Filipino customs and traditions. In 2013, she spearheaded the campaign to convert the Pamintuan ancestral home in Angeles, Pampanga, into a museum that would showcase the best of Philippine textiles and social heritage. Ms. Matiz Tesoris also supported the Museo Cordillera by lending some of our beautiful pieces to the current exhibition on Cordillera textiles. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome Ma'am Patis Tesoro for her talk on assimilation. Patis Tesoro's inspiration from local textiles. Good morning po.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our honor po to have you in our Corditex webinar. Thank you so much po for your time and sharing your knowledge for this webinar.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do I talk now?
Yes, pa.
Okay. So the topic today is how do I assimilate our textiles in today's environment in the 20th, 21st century. Um, it comes naturally. I think it's a gift from God, first of all. Um, but I also have morphed from how I began in my early years when I was 18, 19, 20. Times have changed and you have to change with the times. And with the help of the revival of Katutubong Filipino Foundation in the 1990s, I saw that our crafts were dying out, or at least it was not being used anymore. And the weavers and the you know the our culture in that in textile was sort of being relegated to costume rather than our wearing it or our using it daily. But through the years, with the help of Katutubo, with the help of educational uh, 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 assimilation, and especially the revival of community amongst the indigenous people. We started, I saw first piña. Piña is iconic to the Philippines. You know, when you say piña cloth, we're the only country that weaves, wears, and plants the red Spanish variety. That's the only variety that can be woven in our culture. So when I saw this, I saw that there was no more plants, because in the old days the plants were just you know planted. They just threw it, and then it would just grow, and then they would just take whatever they needed for their children's tuition, etc. But what Katutubi did in the 1990s was actually plant it um, in a more economical and economic way, just like we would be planting rice or something like that. And I took a gamble, but it was a calculated gamble because I knew that Filipinos would be baptized in Piña, would be married in Piña, would become ninongs and ninongs in Piña, would be buried in piña. So it was a very special fabric for Filipinos. And I knew that because of this, there was no problem reviving and selling it. You know, revival is no good without an economic value to it. And I see now with the help of Ikin and with the help of so many people around the country that the revival of our woven fabrics is going very strong. But what I see also is a lack of innovation. And innovation takes research and takes a lot of, I would say, inspiration. We cannot go back to the old colors, to the old ways, because we don't have the threads of the old days. With natural dye, we don't have all the plants in the old, a lot of colors in the plants. We don't have, the Japanese. I watch NHK and I watch a lot of their cultural revival. And there are many of them that really take the pain to plant the sunflower or the dandelions, and they do the process, which is very, very long and very very difficult. And today we have no time. Everything is so expensive. There's inflation. um, food is the priority. So we take shortcuts. And because of that, we don't have the vibrant colors. So what do? We dye it with chemical colors. But again, we like the fast food idea. So our colors are a bit dull. And I'm not saying dull for everybody. It depends on the craft and the tiyaga of the craftsman. A lot of designers are separated now. You know what I mean? I'm a designer of dress, and somebody else will do the dyeing, and somebody else will do the sewing and stuff like that. Um, I'm not saying that you have to be all in one, but you must know the process and pick good craftsmen. Unfortunately, the young ones don't have the background. You know, I was born 1950. You know, I'm 73, so I was able to catch the process. You know, I went up to Ifugao, I went up to all of that, and I still saw the people there uh, planting rice the old way. They were bare-breasted. I went to the you know, where they had the pigs in a pit and all of that. I was lucky enough to catch that. And because of that exposure, I saw that, you know, it was really important to bring back uh, our natural dyes. It was not an easy process because the old ones, fortunately, in 1990, the old ones that could remember were still alive, you know, so that was a plus. Now, many are gone. And so we have another generation of wanting to learn. I think it can still be done, but I think we cannot be fast food. Unfortunately, our economic situation um, and exposure. You know, fast food just started in before the war. Actually, it boomed after the war, and it started in America because of their need to travel. When the car was invented in America, the fast food, you know, the cars had to stop, and so they needed to eat on the way, and that's what started the fast food business. The Philippines, because we like to copy, we copied that, and so that fast food assimilation just continued. Can we still do it today? Unfortunately, yes. We work hard. There's no more time to cook, but there's a lot of people going back to the old, not old, I don't want to say old, to a healthier way of eating. Um, can we do that in textile? Definitely. I see some beautiful pieces and I see a lot of kumsi-kumsa pieces. Craft is community based. I learned that. If you see here in the pictures, I was working with a lot of indigenous people from Tingyans, from Ilongots. You know, I would sleep in the car. The Gadang, I think, are marvelous in their ability to embroider and to bead. I mean, so we look at this and we say to the crafts people there, please do me say Gadang, like this is Gadang. Okay. But you know, they also grew up in a not in the old way. So yes, they have pieces, but again, innovation. You cannot follow always the old, the old, the old. You have to innovate today. The beads are different, the colors are different. Um, I'm not saying kill the old Tingyan or Ilongot or Gadang or you know, all of that. No, no. I think we should be more creative in doing something new. Like, for example, this piece I have here, the embroidery exchange, I thought, how can I marry the Tingyan with the embroidery of of the South, which is basically um, piña embroideries that were taught by the priests and the nuns here in southern Luzon, Lumban. And so I thought of a blanket because the Tingans, that culture in the uplands, they use the blankets for everything. Just like southern Luzon would be baptized, married, buried, etc. The indigenous people up north would also do the same. They would be born in blankets, they would be buried in blankets, they would have their dances in blankets. And I said, it's all about textile, that makes us um, not only be culturally different, but culturally the same. So when I did the Spanish uh, exhibit in the Museo de Antropología in, I think, 2016, 2016, I think, something like that. I'm not so sure. Um, I said, what can we do? The Spaniard said to me, the museo said, my God, you guys still do these things. And I said, yes, it is our culture. We cannot let it die. It cannot just be a museum piece. So you see here a marriage of Southern and Northern Luzon. Now, why cannot that be done throughout the country? There's so much diverse. Ikin, I don't know, there must be hundreds of different cultural minorities. And I consider embroidery in Lumban a minority. You know what I mean? It's not. We're one of the minorities. Um, and because the piña was introduced, this was all of this calado that you see, suksok and all of that, that was introduced by the Europeans. So what I did here was mix our culture. I did a lot of research. I'm very mahilig to looking at books and not only the internet, because I feel the internet is very good, but very limited. So if you have a good library to go to, if you have a collection of books, not only of our country, but from all over the world, because in textile, there are many different kinds of textile that makes a country, a culture different, but there are so many techniques that are the same because we are one we are human. You are humankind, so we cannot take that away from our DNA. So here I mixed again Suksok, Southern Luzon with Tingyan. We painted the Tingyan patterns on. So I mixed the two. The Muslim, I mixed it also. So I don't see this a lot. Um, well, I went to visit Ikin up in Baguio recently, and I see a lot of potential. I think they have to go out, or Ikin can say have a program where a number of people can go down to the south and visit. There's the Ibaan weavers, which are very different from the northern weavers. It's just about an hour away from here. The embroiderers are also about an hour and a half away. We do have a lot here. Um, embroidery, okay, you can say it's a specialty of the Gadang, the beading, the embroidery. But the Tingans have embroidery. I think you name it, Iki, and I see some marvelous embroidery, and I get inspired, and I mix it in. So that is my assimilation. And as the years go by, you will see with this slide presentation that my daughter worked very hard on an Iken. If you see this picture, the finale art file, it's a mixture of geometrics, which is very upland, and a mixture of flowers, which is very lowland, if you want to put it that way. So we shouldn't separate it. But you said, how can we keep our cultural identity? You will. You will keep it. You must keep it. By, I would say, making it more prominent in your work, you know, um, making it more the focal point of your creativity. Do not be afraid to, like, this is a upcycling. Where do I get my ideas? Everywhere. If you follow me on Pinterest, I have thousands of ideas, from food to textile to fashion to inside the house to windows, doors, in Pinterest under my name, Patis Tesoro. And I do it for fun. You know, I just like to do these things. And I think if you look at my work, it's my focus here is to make a modern creation. I mean, I'm no amor solo. I mean, I learned the hard way. You know, I went to school, as I said, but I didn't finish. So this is all pentel pen and ink on Kogon paper, handmade Kogon paper. Why do I like Kogon? Because it um, takes in the paint very well without smudging. Imagine handmade Kogon paper. But there are other, like if you use rice paper, which is usually China, I can't. I can't use it. That my medium won't accept that. Um, from my paintings, you will see that my shading is not so good, but I'm trying hard to make it better, you know, by learning more. So being creative is a constant. You never stop learning. You never stop failing. If you're afraid of people not liking your work, I would say, yeah, that's a fear of everybody. But if you're happy with it, like this one, I use now watercolor pens. It's still pens, but look at the difference between that and pentel pen. That's pentel pen or colored pens. And then look at the next one. That's watercolor. Still on Kogon paper. So that can be done in textile. I mean, there are so many. I use acrylic for painting on textile. You'll see further on that you will see more of that, of painting on textile. Like this is my putong. Do you call it a putong? The thing? What do you call that? Ano ba yan? What do you call this headdress? Yeah. That's the headdress that Southeast Asians wear. We Filipinos use it for the heat of the sun. We put a handkerchief on our head. Since I'm a textile, I studied textile and in school in the States. That was my focus because my mother was a costurera. So I love patterns. Even then, I made rag dolls, which I don't see. I mean, we can make Ifugao rag dolls. Why don't I see rag dolls? My mother-in-law made her fortune in all of these rag dolls, Ifugao dolls, and stuff like. Why don't we see it? Why are we not seeing it? You know, again, in today's um, creativity. This is inspired by the geometrics I inspired. You know, there's a demise also of machine embroidery. There's a demise of everything. But now with time so hard, people are looking for ways and means to be creative, to get the depression away, to do something with their hands. And I think that's the best meditation, to do something with your hands, to figure out whether this is, to make beautiful things, you know. Here I make coat dresses and you say, who will buy them? When I made it, I said to myself, I hope somebody buys it. And yeah, that's sold. This one is sold. And the wall hangings behind, quite a lot of it is sold. I thought, because during the pandemic, I said I had to keep my hand embroiderers and machine embroiderers busy. And I said, what do I do? What do I do? And so I went into the, so you keep on thinking, what can I do? What can I do with what's in front of me? You know, get the old clothes of your grandmother, your mother, or whatever, and get the retazos and put it together. Work more with your hands, and don't, how will you say this one? This was in, I think, in Baguio. This is a combination of the tattoo, and I made it applique. You know, um, as I said, we have a hard time now with machine embroidery. I have three empty machines, machine embroiderers. I have three, because they died, and the one that was trained she's young, so she married, had two, three children in a row. This is part of being human and working with a community. You have to work with those problems. Everybody says, I don't want those problems. It's artificial intelligence na lang. Yeah, I don't know if the robot can do work as beautiful as we humans can do. They can copy, but it looks like a copy. You know, one of my favorite pastimes is watching TV, and one of them is How to Train Your Dragon. And I see a new version of How to Train Your Dragon, and it's artificial intelligence. It's so obvious that it was not done by humans. Now, do you want that to happen? Do you want that to happen? I don't. This one is Muslim malong, and it had lots of stains because, as I said, you get born in it, you get pregnant in it, you sleep in it, you die in it, you wash in it, and so it was full of stains. And I said, "What do I do? What do I do? I can't. This is not museum quality." So I applied and did my modern version of Muslim. So here in Baguio again, I can't remember when this was, but I worked with the Tingyans and with the Norma, who is the last of her family. I knew her whole family in 1990. They were all alive, Luis, all of them. I persuaded them to revive their weaving and their dyeing. And now her whole family, I mean, they just mushroomed into, they never went abroad. They were all planning to go abroad. And that's one of the reasons why we're losing it. Our craftspeople are going abroad. Um, you know, you get people who want to have their clothes made at home. And so it's abroad, it's in the Middle East, it's in Brunei, you know, and we're losing it here. So we're left with what, you know? Um, do we want to do that? Or do we want to pay them? I see the prices. The prices are either reasonable, a little cheap for the value, or tremendously expensive. I think there should be a lesson on, or at least a seminar, Iken, on how to price your art, because this, you know, clothing is an art, but it's wearable art, and our opponents here is fast fashion, So you've got to think, what is your value? If you're thinking of yourself as an office worker and getting office working uh, prices, you'll never make it. It'll just be too expensive. It won't reach the middle class, the lower middle class. It won't reach unless you make, you know, during my day, there was Cupid doll, you know, the doll that you attach to your arm. And that was fun. And then you had a monkey on your arm. Why can't people do that? That's a lot of fun. Dolls, why do you buy Chinese made factory dolls when you can make your own? I have doll patterns. You can get it online, you know, and not just, you can do plain wovens and then dress it up in the skirts and the malongs and stuff like that, and you'll make your own line of that. Children will be children, and there are big collectors of dolls. So I see this. Magnets are great. Magnets are great. They'll never go out of style. Um, but see, I'm a very colorful person. I mean, I like colors a lot. I'm very bohemian. I was born during the hippie. I was born 1950, but I was like 18, 17 in during the Ashar Hypeberry hippie times. And people were very creative. There were a lot more creativity. I'm not saying that we have been, how will you call that? We have been deadened by technology. I love those thermoses. I think if you did that in colors, Ifugao colors in reds and greens and oranges, and the more that will come out. What would you use? Acrylic. Look it up. I mean, I don't know if there's enough books, craft books. I have a big collection here, and I don't know where to put the library. You need to go and find an inspiration. And usually you say, well, online, no, it's limited. You can get a lot, but it repeats itself. Books never repeat. I mean, not in that manner. You can get from so many books and different techniques and all of that. I see so much potential, in this thing that, and I hope that maybe in the next, um, what do you call this, in your next pop-ups here, um, we will see more colors, we will see more innovation and more reasonable prices. I'm happy, me personally, I'm happy selling and making 50 pesos. And I'm happy selling and making 50,000 pesos. It's okay. What I like is that people like my work. So making 50 pesos, of course, 50 pesos is 50 pesos and 50,000 is 50,000. But let's be realistic here. Not everybody can afford making 50,000 pesos, but more people, if you sell 150 pesos, you get 5,000 pesos. It's that sort of thing. It's selling it, selling it. I think we put too much. I think somebody up in Baguio said to me, somebody said, please put, I was told to put my artistic talent in the price of the blouse. And I said, how much did you put? And she said, well, the cost of the blouse is, let's just say 100 pesos. So I put another 100 pesos. I said, how much did you times three it? Did you times three? 100 pesos times three is 300 pesos. She said, yes. Then I put my price, my artistic price on top of it. So it became 400. Why? I said, you made money already, times three ka na dyan. Sabi ko, then it becomes unaffordable. If you want to put that, then you're showing in a gallery. And I think a pop-up is not a gallery, So those are the mindsets that you want to sell. You want to sell. And if you do your handwork yourself, let me tell you, I don't know if Nina put here my pouch bags. Mike, can you show this pouch bag? I'll tell you, it's not, I'll just show you this pouch bag, okay? All right. This is, the denim is 250 for 60 inches width. All right. 1 yard of that you can make, I don't know how many, okay? And then I use all my retazos. I draw it myself. I draw all those patterns myself. I sell it for 1,250. Sometimes there's discount. You know how much I made? August, September, October, November? 600,000. Now, do you want to, I'm an artist, I'm a designer, and this is because I made this and it's gonna cost you 10,000. No, 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 no. You want to share that beauty with everybody. So, what else do I have to say? I think that's it, right? Ikin, what else? Yoo-hoo, nothing's happening.
Hello. Thank you for sharing your insights on this, on your work. Maybe we can open now the question and answer questions from our audience. And we have a question from Margie Perko.
Oh, she's my niece. She's my brother, my eldest brother's um daughter, and
Okay.
she's a great artist too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Margie.
Yeah, she's asking, can you describe your art process? What drives you to wake up each day to create so many beautiful images and patterns in your work? In particular, your most recent renderings on Kogon paper.
I think I am driven by beauty. I think when I wake up in the morning, I look out and I see the birds and I see the plants and I see flowering trees and fruiting trees. I think the environment is very important to creativity. Um, Unfortunately, many people are stuck in apartments in the 16th floor. So you make your inside attractive, and I think Margie has done that. She's a I hope she comes here and comes up to Baguio with me and shares. She's a great stencil. She does stencils, a lot of great stencils. She makes her own patterns. Um, she could, she's a teacher herself, Ikin. She's a teacher herself. So when she comes here, you invite her to come up. And I think she will also learn about the weaving. So what drives me? It's that. It's making beauty. Well, I love beauty and I like making beautiful things. And even if I can't finish my work right away, I do it, then I go off. I look at the halaman, I look at flowers, I see a new plant that may have great flowers or great leaves, and I'm driven by that. I like to learn what makes a plant grow. I'm interested in a lot of stuff. Uh, I have a lot of books, but unfortunately, I haven't read a book for a long time because I'm
Mm.
so busy doing this and that, But I will share that with you. It's a lot of sharing of your knowledge, sharing. Actually, Iken, if you do something and find out when Margie can come, let's go up to Baguio. I can bring her with me if she likes. And then let's do something. Like I'll bring up books. I'll bring up 2 boxes, maybe 50 books of
Okay.
patterns of embroidery, and we just put it on the table for people to look through, you know, and take pictures.
Mhm.
If it's not against the law, I have no clue.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. That's how I get all my inspiration. And you have to have time out for yourself. I mean, I don't like before I would because my fashion because I was in couture, I had to go to a lot of parties. I had to be a fun person, and I am a fun person. But to be creative, you need time out in quiet.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ma'am Pati. So we have some questions here that we gathered from our audience, also sent their questions right now. In relation to the materiality of the things that you make, do you have preference for, let's say, the use of pure cotton in textiles, all these organic materials, or you also innovate and welcome other materials such as the use of polyester and because right now many of our weavers are now gearing towards using polyester because of the scarcity of the use of cotton textiles or cotton threads.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
we have a scarcity of cotton threads in the market.
I saw that.
What do
I
you
saw
think
that.
about it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I of course like pure cotton, pure pinya, pure linen, but it's a very expensive liking. Okay. So to go back to reality, I would, I would say that I mix. I mix. I think the weaving that's done up in Baguio now and the north is a lot of polyester because now of the scarcity. I hope that will change. We're working maybe with Lauren Legarda or some group of people bringing in more, say, cheaper cotton because the problem is price also, no? And polyester speaks. But if you say mix it a little bit more like a mixture of polyester and cotton, it's not so heavy because pure polyester is very slidey. It does not breathe. It doesn't breathe, you know. So I don't know. A lot of I think I'm okay with that. I'm okay with all of that. I think, but choices of what you will use is more important, and how you will use it. It's more important.
Thank you, Ma'am Patis. We have a question from Diwa Malaya. I think she's from Hawaii. She's our fellow at the Cordillera Study Center. So her question is, how do you work with our Filipino indigenous communities? Can you please describe how you approach them, collaborate with them, spend time with them? Would love to hear some of these moments with indigenous communities.
Well, okay. In 1990, in the 90s, okay, I went up not knowing anybody. But I used to collect, I had a supplier from the Tingyans who would sell me, Tingyan antiques, okay? And so when I started the program, I said, how do I do? And then I remembered them. So I focused on the Tingyans because I already had a supplier, the Agaids. And they were selling. I mean, they were going house to house and that sort of thing. And so I approached them. I went up there. And at that time, it was a hanging bridge, huh? There was no road going to the Agaids. That only happened much, much later. I think you have to approach them by first saying to them that you're not here to lord it over them or to bring in your thoughts on how they should do things. I approach them and saying, can you teach me what you do? What have you got? What made you like this? What's your culture? You know, and what's your pro and what's happening now? Okay. At that time, the weaving was not too much anymore. They were selling all their antiques. They were becoming more lowlander types, more assimilated, no? And so I said to them, well, you can make money out of being keeping your culture. But what's happening now is when you get tamad in creativity, you don't research enough, you don't experiment enough, it becomes boring. It becomes, I'm selling now in this pop-up, I'm selling now in that pop-up. And that is a pitfall, okay? So community first, find out what plants do they use for dyeing? Because that's what I said. What did you used to do? And they said, well, they used to dye with this and that and that and that. And I said, where is it? And they said, we don't plant them anymore. We don't do this anymore. Mahogany and all of that. Not the local mahogany, no, not the, I don't know the names anymore. So our program said, okay, can you go to they said that we can find it up in the mountains overlooking the South China Sea. Okay, I said, can we do that? Yeah, we have to wait for the the seeds to grow and to fall down, blah 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 blah. And we waited. It's years. It's not tomorrow. It's not fast food. That's for sure. Um, and so the natural dye came, and now the bark of those trees are there. They're planted. Mine is, wow, it's about what, 15 feet tall. You know, the ones I planted here, I'm sure there's there up there. That's why they have natural dye. You know, all of that was done in the 1990s. So when you go there, you find out what first makes them tick as a cultural group. What makes them different from the Ifugaos? What makes them different from the Ilongots? Because they're the same and yet they're different, no? So that interested me a lot. And if any of them have something that they can show you that is their grandparents or something that they did not sell, I appreciate all of that. My God, it's like amazing. And then again, why do you use it? I went to the Tingyans. They had this sacrifice the pig but it was in the field. They would sacrifice it in the field, and then they would pray and do all that stuff. It was different from the ifugao. It's so interesting. So that's one thing. Number two, what's planted? What can they mix? As you were telling me, Iken, it's all polyester. Why can they not mix natural dye with polyester?
Mhm.
That's interesting. If it's too much work, then that's katamaran. You know what I'm trying to say? If you want to be different, you got to work hard. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question from Greta Lu Apolinar. She's asking, what setbacks or resistance have you encountered in your advocating Filipiniana and hand-woven textiles from the different cultures?
Well, a lot. When I was wearing the barot saya, and I was approached by somebody who said, "Are you with the Bayanihan?" I said, "No." "Are you Filipino?" She said, "Yes." "Well, so am I." You know, because I wasn't being bastos. I was just saying we have separated ourselves from being Filipino to costume. That's one. That it wasn't a setback. It was an eye opener. Another one was there's no more plants. I mean, the plants were not planted. Now there's a few, and I think much, much more than when I started. And that's a plus. Um, Another thing is the weaving. A lot of weavers are they're good weavers, they're bad weavers. There's good embroiderers, they're bad embroiderers. I mean, we're all human, no? So the best weavers are the ones that they love their art. They're outstanding. And you can see naman eh.
Yes.
But all those who don't know can also be outstanding. They just need to. You know the bag I was showing you that the barangay does for me?
Yes.
I asked them if they were interested in earning, and they said yes. And do you know how to embroider? No. And I said, would you like to come every weekend for a month? Every weekend, okay, 2 days, one, and you will work next to my girls, and you will embroider next to my girls. They said they were willing, and they were on Christmas break or whatever break, uh, school break. My God, they flew with it. And now who is embroidering? Grandmothers, mothers, sari-sari store owners, aunties, 7-year-old, 10-year-old. They make the little bola-bolas. They make the little. So that's what you want to do. Craft is community. You cannot separate it. You cannot separate it. You cannot be an artist and be in your own little studio and do everything.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. This is a comment rather than a question from attorney Elizabeth Medina Navarro from Happy Happy Wearable Weaves, no? And she said, I have been a fan since my uncle and aunt's wedding in the 1980s, Buboy and Lean Lopez
Oh,
Medina.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your inspiring talk, especially emphasizing daily use of our textiles and aiming for affordability. You are right that your creativity is God-given and cannot be taught, no? Padayon, Miss Patis, and thank you for your art. This is from Attorney Medina.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the other question is from Rosiane Hilario. She said, is there a sense of consciousness in representing Filipino women and femininity in your works?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. In craft, you see, in certain, when I say indigenous groups, okay, the women are usually the weavers and the men are usually the farmers. You know, they collect the piña, for example, or the dyes from the plants. That was usually the case. They did heavier work. Not that weaving is not heavy work. It's back breaking work, especially if you're doing the backstrap loom, no? It's a lot of hand movements, a lot of, that sort of thing. Women are focal to this, very much the driving force in craft, in textile craft. Okay. When we're talking about, say, furniture or bamboo, or that's usually a man's job. But definitely, yes, we are feminine oriented, female oriented.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Patis. There's a question from Jamie Cardenas. I think she's Ilocana and has connection also to the Tinggen patterns. So she wants to know, can you talk more about your Cosicos inspired piece? There are a few of us in the diaspora reconnecting to our Ilocana roots, and I am currently learning how to weave the Cosicos pattern. Have you received any negativity for recreating weaving patterns and motifs in your work?
No, not at all. Not at all. Um, it's like being a uh, being a history teacher, or know your past before you can produce for the future. Okay, learn the basics of, say, your Ilocano. But Ilocano weave is basically an assimilation of the northern tribes. Am I correct, Iki, no? It's a assimilation of, say, southern, I don't know if it's southern Luzon, but the weaving, because in those days everybody wove their clothes. So if you're talking about Ilocano, I would say it is already uh, an assimilation, you know. So what do you want to do with it? When you say the pattern you're talking about, is it really Ilocano, or because the Ilocanos made it their own? And I'm not being talking bad about Ilocano. It is Ilocano because you made it your own,
Mhm.
you know. So make other things your own, other patterns your own.
Okay. There's a question from Armando Bautista.
Oh yeah, si Ding.
Yeah. And he's asking, how do you want to be remembered as an artist in Philippine art history books someday?
Who, me?
Yes.
Never thought about it, Ding. Um, well, I want to be remembered as somebody who did something for her country and who loved beautiful things and wanted to bring it to today's uh, environment, and hopefully inspire our generations to come to continue in their own way, because textile can last for a long, long time.
Mhm.
It's the embellishment that changes. Textile, the weaving patterns are the same for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the embellishment that changes with time, becomes lesser, becomes more. Today it's lesser because there's a lot more time involved in making it, but people also like it lesser today than before, because before, that was their decoration in their house. It was, they wore a bahag. I mean, that was the only decoration they had aside from tattoos, right? So they did it on their body. But today we have so much decoration, we can hardly choose what, diba? So make it, I would say, I want to be remembered for trying my best to keep our culture going, in culture especially.
Thank you,
In
Ma'am.
textile especially. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have more questions. You talk about creating beautiful things, and of course, this endless form of creativity that you have. But when you create a piece, when do you say this is enough, or this is just right for any piece? Because you create unique pieces, no, one of a kind. So when do you say it's enough? This is enough for this piece.
Sometimes I do it in segments. I start a piece and I see how it reveals itself. Like, say I'm doing a jacket. So I put pieces on the jacket, and then I say to my girls, stop muna. I'll come back tomorrow, or I'll come back in several days, and I'll see if it needs more or less. So you don't do it all in one blow. I mean, that's the way I work. I don't do it all in one blow. I'm not a my work is different kasi when you do textile, it's a longer process, say, than say if you are a a cartoon artist or a comic artist, because that one is a storyboard. This is a storyboard, but you have to see how it looks, and it reveals itself step by step, no? Yeah. So that's my process.
Yeah. Thank you, Ma'am Patis. As an artist, we have noted your there's a spectrum in terms of the artistry as a minimalist and then a maximalist. So in that spectrum, I think based on your work that you have presented and the beautiful art pieces that you have done, this is a maximalist point of view. What can you say about that? Like there's no space like in the Kogon paper, it's all maxed out, which is
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful and awesome, very unique. What
yeah.
can you say about that particular work of yours
An,
regarding
an,
being a
art,
maximalist?
an artist should do art for herself and what makes her happy. I do not do art because I want somebody else to just taste to enter my work. I can take opinions, I can take you know, suggestions, but if I like my art, I follow my heart and my mind, no? Um, People liking my art, now that's a bonus. That's a bonus. How do you reach that? But just keep on working and keep on dreaming and keep on creating. And who knows? One day somebody, taste is relative. When people say, boy, you've got bad taste, that bad taste is somebody else's good taste, huh? So you can't say, oh, bad taste and good taste, no? It's your lifestyle. It's how you want to be seen and what you think is beautiful. And the world is very big. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes po. Ma'am Patis, there's another question, and I think you have already discussed this earlier. She's asking, what's in a day like for Patis? And where do you get your inspiration for your designs?
My day. Okay, I'm matanda na, so I wake up early. I wake up at about usually 5 o'clock. Latest is 6 o'clock. And I don't have any aircon. I don't have any cortina. So the sun comes in, or the hamog comes in, or if it's a cloudy day or the rain, I see it outside my window. It's a changing palette, all the time for me. And I like early morning because it's quiet and the air is fresh. Okay. I'm very blessed with that because I have trees. And I planted the trees in this manner, huh? I don't have a landscaper. I do everything myself. I love creating. So even the house you see I'm in, I created that myself. How did I do it? I just studied how our ancestors did it. Four postes, and it's a Southeast Asian way of looking at things, no? I don't like all these little corridors, even though I do have, because Filipinos like to make dugtong. You have a little money, dugtong. When you have a little money, dagdag, diba? So, like that. And you have to be masipag. You have to be, not all the time you're in a good mood, but you accept life as it comes. That's one main thing. In my age, when I was younger, I used to bang my head. I used to scream and be frustrated a lot. And there's a lot of things to be frustrated. Um, People have different opinions. People have power play. People are mayabang. People are this. People are that. Step away from that. If you can somehow find a way to step away from all of that, do so. And if you need to do it more often, do so. I immerse myself in my art because for me, it's like meditation. Just like gardening is meditation, music is meditation. Um, I don't know if teaching is meditation. I I think do that.
Yes.
If it's meditation, then that's your calling. That's what God made you want to do, you know. And I think if you do that, yoga is great. I don't mind. I did a little bit of yoga,
Mhm.
especially in India. Um, but I don't do it here. I'm too busy, you know. I'm just too busy to do that. I just do that. I think open air, less aircon, less curtains drawn. It gives you depression. It doesn't make you see the outside world, you know.
Mhm.
Um, I'm sorry. Those of you who live in Baguio, I think you can still see that. Um, though there's a lot of houses now instead of trees. Here in Laguna, well, I just planted trees. I think that is so important, not only for the earth but for us as a human species.
Thank you, Ma'am Patis. We have a participant from the National Museum of Iloilo in Western Visayas. Her name is Isra Dayalo, and she's a big fan of yours. And this is her question. As an aspiring textile conservator, how do you store your textile collections collected from the 1990s? And do you have a specialized cabinet or any advice on how to conserve the textiles, especially your work?
Unfortunately, it's very expensive.
Mhm.
Okay. So I use old aparadors, you know, old aparadors because the wood is good.
Mhm.
Um, Plastic is a no-no. Keeping clothes in plastic is a no-no. Okay. Because there's no air.
Mhm.
The only one that has air, if you want to frame it, or is plexiglass. Plexiglass has, if you notice, if you frame something in glass, sometimes it gets amag inside
Mhm. No
because
air.
it has no air. Yeah. So most museums now are advocating, textile museums are advocating plexiglass. That's what I learned from Florica Zaharia, who is a textile conservator. No, also don't flatten your clothes. You know, we like to fold our clothes after making labada or whatever, and you store it that way. If that's why when you don't use it for a long, long time, or it's your grandfather's and you take it out, marupok na. Where do you notice it cracking? Usually where you folded it.
Mhm.
Usually where you folded it. Okay, that's where it cracks. So the advice given to me is you roll because you know if you buy the what you call it anti-acid, which I don't know if we have it here. Unfortunately, I use Japanese paper. You know, I get two pieces of Japanese paper and I just crumple it like a sausage, not very tight, very loose, and then you suck it into your sleeves, into your shoulders. It's very simple. This is what was taught by Zaharia. It's not perfect because she will not advise Japanese. Anything that has chemical is not good for textile. So
Yeah.
most of our paper has chemicals, you know, and all of that. So um, if you want to follow our ancestors, they never ironed a lot because the ironing, diba, you had to go like that with the ironing thing and hang on a tree. It was a lot of work. So they sort of like didn't iron a lot. They only ironed on special days, on Sundays. And their iron pa was with the
Mhm.
charcoal pa, no? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oo. If you don't iron a lot, that's also good. And don't hang your clothes. That is also okay. You see it hanging in stores. You have to see it hanging because how will you choose, diba? But
Mhm.
after you buy it, I would keep it folded or roll it, roll it. Especially your t-shirts. Sometimes you see your t-shirts are like that, like that. It's
Mhm.
because you hung here. It's
Yeah.
hung. Yeah. Those are the little tidbits I can give you.
Yeah. Or use glassine paper and recycled tubes, no, from the tarpaulins, and you can actually roll that as well.
Yeah, well, that's if you have a
Roll.
big space. But if you
Yeah.
don't have, you can even depends on what you want to roll. Depends on because you not everybody knows how to buy these rollos, no. So Japanese paper is easier. I wish. Newspaper, no, because it's got a lot of
Okay, yeah.
a lot of chemicals. Yeah.
Okay, we have more questions po. Are you still good?
Okay.
Okay. This one, another question. What kind of artwork took you the longest to make? And do you think the duration of the process adds to its value?
No, depends on your talent. I mean, there's like artists that can, like Moss, like he can paint a painting in 10 minutes. I can't do that because I'm very. It depends on what you want to do and how you feel about doing it. As I said, don't think about money because that's the death of creativity. Think about what makes you happy and it will show in your work. A lot of people like blue. A lot of people like black and blue. That shows your work. Yeah, that shows what your mind, how it goes. Are you in that state right now? I mean, if you think of the artist, um, what's that French artist that went mad, the one with the scream, he did the scream. Look at
Edmund Munch.
yeah, look at his work. His how his mind progressed. You know, that's that's your work. That's who you are. That's who you are.
Okay, I think we have last three more po.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We have seen, as you mentioned earlier, we have seen the revival of traditional textiles in the last 3 to 5 years. No, we have textile exhibitions, fairs everywhere, workshops, textile exchange, and what have you. What else do we need to do to sustain this kind of practices in weaving and also in fashion?
I think we should basically, I think, huh? Because weaving is an art. It's an art process. What we have forgotten is craftspeople are artists also in their own way, in their medium, okay? And people who develop products or develop their art from these practices. I think we need more art classes. I mean, learn different mediums, learn how to paint, learn how to drawing classes. You can take it online, or I like to go in a group because I like to discuss with people. I see how they work. I look at mine, and we discuss, how do you do that? How did you mix your paints? How did you, the, how do you call that? The process is there. The, you have to be interested in other people's work aside from your own, and doing it online. You're all by yourself by the telephone. I know that's the way it goes today. But if you see, and then other people will say, you're copying my work. No, I'm getting inspired. Why? Me, I'm not how will you call that, threatened. I'm not threatened. My mother-in-law, Tesoros, Mrs. Tesoro, she told me, Patis, the more people copy you or want to be like you, it's an honor, because that means you have inspired them. It's not about money. I mean, I'm no Steve Jobs, I just love my work, okay? And that will sing to people. And then your pop-ups will be more exciting. And more people will come, you interchange with them and you say, how did you do that? Oh, this and that, I mixed this with that. I don't see it happening in pop-ups. I really don't. I see people just selling. And that's boring.
Mm. Thank you po. In connection with that, because we have weavers also, we have master weavers, and the problem that we identified in the Corditex project is how to give them equivalency, no? You don't get a diploma for weaving or a degree for weaving in the Philippines. So, do you have like suggestions on how we can give recognition to our master weavers who have been there, and of course younger generation of weavers, no, because there's no credential, like there's no TESDA certificate on weaving. Benguet State University used to have home economics, BS home economics major in weaving, but that was lost in the 1980s. And now we have this sudden surge of weaving. How do we give them, like, of course, not only credit, but also to recognize them as part
You know,
of
I
the
watch
country?
TV at night, okay? And one of the things I like to watch is this food something, you know, it's a food station. And they have these contests where you have uh, who can beat Bobby Flay or something like that. And it's all about fun. Of course, you get a cash equivalent, no? You get
Yeah.
something for. But these are all people who just want to do it for fun. First, we must not take away the fun factor, the creative factor. Creativity and fun come together. Because a creator will not do anything if it's not fun for him, if it's not what makes him sing. You know what I'm trying to say? So I would maybe get a group together that, see, we're so serious, really serious. It has to be a government award. I mean, why can't it be a private people award? Look at all the people online. I mean, how many people follow Corditex? If you're about 1,000, 2,000, that's a lot, you know? So and then you can put it online and say, this is the weaving of X and X and X and X, and then show again how he does it, how, and then everybody votes on it, and then maybe everybody puts in 10 pesos. Isn't that fun?
Yes, good
And it's,
idea.
and it's a recognition. It's a recognition of his work, and then say X is going to show in this pop-up and X is going to show, and everybody will go. It's a powerful tool. Di ba, Ethan?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Okay.
think we're going to the last question about value, or putting premium. You mentioned earlier about the monetary value, the materials value, the cost for the textiles or whatever, and then you have the artistic value,
Yes.
which is the premium for creating something. Can you give some comments or advice to our budding artisans or
I think the
weavers here?
premium value would be if you use good materials. It sings for itself.
Mm-hmm.
People know this from that, you know. The artistic value comes next. Say you're a designer, okay, and you use polyester a lot, and then you price it like it's a fantastic material. That's wrong. That's
Mm-hmm.
already wrong. Okay. Uh, when you use good material, good colors, your designs are well thought out, or at least it makes you happy, and showing your work. Then you make that a little more expensive. When you're starting out, you cannot start out like you're showing in a gallery. People think that textile should be in, yes, textile should be in galleries,
Mm-hmm.
but that is another level. We're talking about livelihood. We're talking about crafts people, craft. Why can't we have fun with it? You know, we can make money with it too. The placemats are, I mean, if you do a beautiful placemat by doing a cross in the middle or something like that, it becomes different. It does not have to be the Baguio weave of before. You know what I'm trying to say? You can put a Tingyan dancing frog, say, in a big manner in the center, not these little ones. You see, those are different things, and use different colors and threads. It becomes creativity for you. For me, that makes the value. That's how you can sell it. And people tell me, Patricia, you're expensive, but in some areas you're not. I said, yeah, because I say to myself, how can I sell this? It's my retazos, and I'm going to sell it like it's not a retazo. No, 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 no. I made money already on that. It's my retazo. Money is made already. So why not give it a lower, cost, stuff like that. And as for creativity, as I said, if you're selling goods and you are the designer and you times three it already, that's already your patong, no? Now, if it's an art piece and you're selling it in a gallery, the gallery will take 50%. So what's left for you? 50%. That's another story.
Mhm.
But pop-ups are not galleries, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much po. Okay, the last question is because our audience are we have weavers, artisans, craftspeople. What is your advice on them in relation to your work in textiles, in crafts and all of that? So what's your advice for our audience now?
Look outside your comfort zone. Um, Look at not only the phone or the computer for your ideas, but really go out, go to libraries, look for I go to Divisoria. You know, I went to the Baguio market with Nina just this last trip when I visited you. And I saw this place, what's he's very popular. It's
Mandeco
a
Quito?
Chinese. Huh?
The Mandeco Quito at UP Baguio or
Oh no, this is just textile
market? Okay.
in the market. It's at the basement. I forgot the name. Nina knows the name. I love it. They sell it so cheap. As I said, denim is only 250 for 60 inches width, no? You know, I went nuts there. I went nuts. And it's, you said, and then I said, you know what I like about this place? They're so Filipino. You
Mm-hmm.
can make, you can make a lampay and, little children's clothes out of it. It's fabulous. So that's a creativity that I like, you know. Like I saw in the market also they make like you did brooms, you know. I saw little brooms. I saw brooms with faces. I saw doll brooms.
Mm-hmm.
I saw computer brooms, you know, under the computer. Fabulous. With different colors. You
Mm-hmm.
should have Tarsus. There's so much people throwing out their t-shirts. You know, your husband's t-shirts, it's already worn out. You tell him, okay, sira. Siya, don't make it into a rug, you know, to make punas. Cut it into pieces and wrap it around and put a pom-pom at the edge. Hello. So that's my what I have to say.
Thank you, Ma'am Patis. We have two comments. These are not questions, no? This is from Assistant Professor Mocha Rayala from the UP Diliman College of Home Economics. And she said, thank you so much, Ma'am Patis Cesar, for being an inspiration. I do hope other designers would also think of how to make Filipiniana or anything Filipino a daily wear or a household interior piece, embroidery, design patterns, and or textiles. And they said thank you for this webinar and for having you. And she said she has two Patis Tesoro Filipiniana gowns and it's already 12 years old and she still wears it until now.
She
So
hasn't
thank you
gotten
so
fat.
much
Thank you. Thank you.
from Mocha. Okay,
Thank
so thank you so much, Ma'am Patis, for your time. And of course, we value these conversations we have with you. It's a
thank you.
lovely conversation. And of course, we hope to organize like a Weavers Exchange later on in Baguio with the Corditex, like you earlier suggested, because there are some weavers who are looking for inspirations and guidance from you,
You know
no?
what? You know what, Ikin? When you have that, I think we should invite the different thread companies,
Mhm.
you know, and ask the weavers to bring their old t-shirts, their husband's t-shirts, old stuff that they don't want anymore. Instead of making it into rugs like that, bring it as a buo, and let's do some workshop together on that.
Okay,
That would
fantastic.
be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah. All kinds
Yes.
of textile, doesn't matter. They're old wovens that are not moving. Let's see what we can.
Mm.
But you need tables, and I hope I'm not the only teacher because that would be a lot for me. Uh, but we can work on it. We can work on the ideas. That should be about not only one day, I would say. I would say 2 days. While you're having a pop-up.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
one side can have this workshop, not just a workshop. You know what I mean? Yeah, that would be fun to work with the different weavers and everything. You know, the stuff that don't sell and they want to do something with it. That's fun. For me, it's fun. It's like,
Okay, so thank you so much, Ma'am Patis,
okay, thank
for
you,
your
Nina. Thank
wonderful
you too.
time.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed.
Okay, thank you so much and see you soon again. Thank you so much po.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.